Hi, I'm Chef Nick. We're here at the Brickyard, and I just got my box from Nourish, filled with a bunch of different ingredients. So let's go ahead and start unloading this thing. All right, 12 eggs. We're only gonna need a couple. So we're gonna separate the whites and the yolks, but we're gonna keep both parts. And we're keeping both parts because we're gonna end up using all the egg yolks for a hollandaise we can put on top of our entree, the marinated skirt steak. So that way we're using all the egg with no waste. So luckily for me, we did a little pre-planning here. So I have my cold frozen bowl and frozen whisk to whip up these egg whites. We're also gonna need a little bit of this powdered sugar here. And then we're gonna need a little less than 1 cup of powdered sugar for 3 egg whites. So let's see. All right, so we're gonna start whisking. Basically, you're just gonna kind of slap and literally beat this egg white with no sugar. So we're starting with the SEMIFREDDO first, just so it has time to freeze when we stick it in the freezer. And then while we cook everything else, and then hopefully it'll be frozen by the time the rest of your dinner is made. Once the egg whites get frothy, we're gonna slowly start adding this powdered sugar into it, and we're just gonna continue to whisk. So we're gonna slowly keep adding the sugar. You don't wanna add it all at once because the sugar will just end up clumping. And the idea and the goal is really to get every tiny granule of powdered sugar coating the egg white. This will help stabilize it, make it frothy. It's gonna almost look like whipped cream. Just gonna keep adding it. So another trick too, if your bowl starts getting warm at all, is get another bowl and fill it with ice and stick it underneath. That'll kind of help the bowl you got your egg whites in stay cold, and it'll help with the stabilization of the egg yolks, or the egg whites. All right, all the powdered sugar's in. So at this point, we're just gonna go keep beating until it's soft peaks. Now, if you're doing this with somebody, you can switch off. It always makes it easier. So you know you're on track once it starts looking like pancake batter, and you can see on the top, it's kind of holding its shape and holding its form, and that's really good. That means we're on our way, but we're not quite there yet. The more you beat it and the fluffier it gets, the better your texture will be for your ice cream or your SEMIFREDDO. I'm gonna stick this back in the freezer for a second because that bowl is getting warm. All right, but we gotta add the chocolate to that first. Let's see what we're dealing with. Semi-sweet chocolate, perfect for baking. I think honestly, we'll probably end up using half of this. The easiest way to melt chocolate now is going to be a double boiler. Basically, a double boiler is going to be indirect heat melting your chocolate, so it doesn't burn. So the way to do that is we're gonna get a pot. All right, so we're gonna get our pot, fill it with some water. Only a little bit though, not a lot. You don't want this water to touch the bottom of a bowl that we're gonna place on top. All right, so we're gonna crank the heat and we're gonna bring it to a boil, put our bowl on top of it. So basically what it'll do, once the water starts boiling in the pot, the steam will warm up the bottom of this bowl, the whole bowl, and then it'll just slowly melt down our chocolate. Once it melts down, we're just gonna fold it into our meringue that we have working. So we can kind of like let this be, it'll take care of itself. Once your water comes to a boil, we'll turn down our heat a little bit to about medium low, and we'll just kind of let it do its thing. When the chocolate is melted, it'll look the same until you touch it and it'll just kind of fall apart. Back to our meringue, you can see it's holding up pretty well. It's a little less than soft peaks right now because it's not holding its shape, holding its form. This is a little bit, you can see. Stiff peaks are when it's straight and it looks pretty much like whipped cream out of a can or something like that. Oh yeah. You can always tell when you're getting there because it starts to thicken up on you and it gets harder to move through it. Perfect. All right, so we're gonna stop at that. You can always try flipping it upside down. I always try this too, just to make sure there is enough sugar in it. That's perfect. You don't want it overly sweet because the chocolate, even though it's baking chocolate, which generally doesn't have as much sugar, it still does obviously have sugar in it. You can always look at the back label. Let's see here, unsweetened chocolate, bam. Second ingredient, cane sugar. There you go. This should be a solid ratio. At this point, what we're gonna end up doing is we'll grab a second bowl. We're gonna put our melted chocolate in this bowl, but you don't want it to be the same bowl you're using as your double boiler. If you have a warm bowl, it'll start melting down your egg whites that you just spent all that time whipping. So this is just a room temperature bowl, that works fine. And we're gonna slowly incorporate your egg white and sugar mixture, also known as a meringue, once you bake it. So our meringue mixture into the chocolate, and we're gonna do half at a time. Here's our double boiler. We got our water on the bottom that's steaming this bowl with the chocolate on top. Just left it, haven't touched it. You can start to see that the edges are starting to melt down quite a bit, right? There is still some solid on the top of the chocolate, but that's fine. We can just let it go for another minute or so. While we're waiting for that, we're gonna get some of these vegetables cut up and ready to go that Nourish provided us. And then it's kind of a cool idea for these 3 dishes because we're gonna try and use all the scrap. So all the scrap from our vegetables, we're gonna use to tenderize our meat. So we're gonna save all of them. What we're gonna do is all our scrap we'll end up throwing in this pan right here. Just put our meat in there as well, and we'll use that pan to marinate. So I've come back over here. This chocolate is definitely ready to go. It's completely melted. It's soft, so we can kill the heat on our pot. Grab it with a towel because this bowl will be warm. And then we're gonna move this chocolate, use a spatula, or you can use anything really, I guess. Room temperature bowl, cold bowl, hot bowl, right? We're gonna use the room temp to mix everything, and we can discard the warm bowl. Meringue, chocolate, room temperature bowl. We're gonna take half of the egg white powdered sugar meringue, right? And fold it. The term folding is different than mixing, right? So if you mix it, you'll flatten your egg whites. So you wanna slowly fold it. So basically you're gonna scoop under it, go over the top, and then just kind of keep doing that, right? Until it's all incorporated and mixed together. So you're gonna use this technique just so the meringue kind of stays fluffy, light, airy. You just spend all that time whisking it. So let's keep it nice and airy. So once that's all incorporated and mixed, we can slowly keep adding more, so we'll get a little bit more. I did say earlier we'll do half and half. Well, things change as you cook, so we're just gonna do thirds. Learn as you go and roll with the punches. So we use our spatula to scrape all that we can out of the frozen bowl. If you do have a KitchenAid at home, you can do all of this in the KitchenAid. You can whip up your egg whites, and then you can slowly put your chocolate in. So at this point, it's done. We're gonna taste it one more time to make sure it's good, ready to go. Because once it's frozen, you're gonna have to start all over again. It's gonna take longer because you have to let it cook down. Oh yeah. You're looking for something really light, airy, fluffy, chocolatey, sweet, and delicious because it's dessert. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna throw this in the freezer and we're just gonna let it freeze. So in the freezer, this will last just as long as any other ice cream. The more you pull it out, take scoops out of it, it will slowly deflate and it'll turn more into a fudge than a ice cream. which is perfectly fine too because fudge is delicious. I also do smaller batches at a time. You can do a larger batch. We have 12 eggs that were provided and we only used 3 of them, so we still have 9 left over. So if you wanted to use all 12, you can. Obviously you'd have to add more powdered sugar, which we definitely have more than enough from our Nourish box. Probably more chocolate too, which if you didn't eat it while you're whipping your meringue up, then you're good to go. So we're just gonna throw this in the freezer right now and then forget about it, and then we'll come back when we are ready for dessert. Okay, so we got our SEMIFREDDO we put in here earlier. We can just check on that, and then hopefully it's frozen and good to go. So it looks pretty good. You can definitely scoop it. Cool. There you have it, our chocolate SEMIFREDDO for dessert. Thank you guys. Chef Nick here. That was me thinking inside the box. We had our salad, our entree, and then our SEMIFREDDO for dessert. And here I am challenging other chefs in the Valley of Phoenix to think inside the box.